You quit your job on a Tuesday morning, not because you have another one waiting, not because you've suddenly become wealthy, and not because you figured out exactly what you're going to do next. You quit because you spent 3 years telling yourself the same thing. Once I have enough money, I'll have more time. You have said it while sitting in traffic. You have said it at your desk at 6:47 in the evening with 43 unread emails and a coffee that went cold 2 hours ago. You've said it while checking your bank account before buying something you don't really need. You always thought the order was obvious. Work first, money second, freedom last. So on this Tuesday morning, you decide to reverse it. You take the freedom first and figure out the money later. You stare at the resignation email for almost 10 minutes. The cursor is sitting beside the final sentence. Your manager's name is at the top. Your employee number is at the bottom. Everything about it looks strangely ordinary. You press send. That's it. No alarm, no notification from the universe, no sudden feeling that you've made the greatest decision of your life. Just a small sound from your laptop. Sent. You close it. And for the first time in 3 years, nobody can tell you where you need to be at 9 tomorrow morning. That is the first thing you notice. Not the money, the time. You make breakfast slowly. You wash the plate immediately instead of leaving it in the sink. You stand by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee and realize that it's 9:18 on a Tuesday and you're not late for anything. You could go for a walk, you could read, you could sit there for another hour, nobody cares. For a few days, this feels like winning. You wake up without an alarm, you go outside when the sun is out. You cook lunch instead of eating something from a plastic container at your desk. You start writing down ideas you've been postponing for years, a small online business, investing more consistently, learning a skill, maybe buying a cheap laptop and doing freelance work, maybe building something of your own. You have 12 tabs open by Friday. By the following Tuesday, you have a notebook filled with plans. This is going to work. You don't know exactly how yet, but you're finally going to build wealth, and that phrase feels different now. Before, wealth meant a number, $1 million, a paid-off house, a brokerage account with enough money that you could stop worrying about every unexpected expense. Now, wealth seems to mean something else. Control, time, the ability to decide what Tuesday looks like. So you begin. You spend the first month learning. You watch tutorials, you read books, you study businesses that were built from nothing. You look at investment charts late at night. You calculate how much you would need invested to replace your old salary. The number is bigger than you expected. Much bigger. You close the calculator, then open it again. You realize something uncomfortable. Quitting your job didn't remove the pressure, it just changed its name. Before, you were working because your employer expected it. Now you're working because you're afraid that the savings will run out, afraid that the business won't work, afraid that you've made a mistake, afraid that everyone who told you to keep your job was right. So you start waking up early again. 6 a.m., then 5:30. Then 5. You tell yourself it's different this time because you're doing it for yourself, and technically, that's true. But your calendar starts filling up. Monday becomes work, Tuesday becomes work, Wednesday becomes work, Saturday becomes the day you catch up. You have no boss, no commute, no office, and somehow you're working more hours than before. This is the part nobody puts in the motivational video. Freedom can be uncomfortable when you spent your entire life being told what to do. You had spent years dreaming about an empty calendar, then you got one, and discovered that an empty calendar gives you nowhere to hide. So you keep building. 3 months pass. Your first freelance client pays you $600. You stare at the payment notification, $600. It's not enough to replace your old salary. It's barely enough to cover a portion of your monthly expenses. But it feels different. This money didn't come from a company deciding what your hour was worth. It came from something you built. You transfer $300 into your investment account. You keep the other $300 for expenses. Then you open your notebook. At the top of the page, you've written $100,000. That is the first milestone. Not because $100,000 makes you rich, it doesn't. But because you know what happens when money starts producing more money. You don't need every dollar to come from your time anymore. That idea stays with you. You begin investing consistently. A little from every payment, then more. You stop upgrading your life every time your income increases. You keep the same phone. You keep driving the same car. You move into a smaller apartment than you could technically afford. Your friends don't understand. One of them gets promoted, another buys a new SUV. Someone else starts talking about a house. You listen, you congratulate them. Then you go home and transfer another $400 into your investment account. It doesn't feel exciting. Most of the time, it feels boring. That's the point. Wealth doesn't usually announce itself while it's being built. It looks like saying no to something nobody else would have noticed. A dinner, a car, a bigger apartment, a weekend you could have spent shopping. One decision doesn't change your life. The repeated decision does. A year passes, then another. Your income becomes less predictable, but more flexible. Some months are terrible. Some months are surprisingly good. You learn to stop judging your entire future by a single month. Your investment account crosses $20,000, then $30,000, then $50,000. The numbers are finally becoming large enough to move without your permission. That is when you notice something strange. The money is no longer the most exciting part. It's what the money allows you not to do. You don't have to accept every client. You don't have to stay in a bad situation because the paycheck arrives every other Friday. You don't have to ask someone for a day off. You don't have to pretend you're sick when you're exhausted. You don't have to explain why you want to spend Tuesday afternoon with your father. You simply go. And you begin to understand what you were actually chasing. It wasn't wealth, it was choice. But then another problem appears. You have become good at working, too good. You start measuring yourself by output again. How much did you make? How much did you invest? How many hours did you work? How much closer are you to financial independence? The numbers that were supposed to give you freedom start becoming another boss. You check your accounts before breakfast. You check them before bed. You calculate your net worth every Sunday. You have escaped the office. But you have carried the office inside your head. One afternoon, you notice it. You're sitting in a coffee shop. Your laptop is open. Your phone is beside it. You have an email half written, a spreadsheet on the screen, 3 investment charts in another tab. Outside the window, people are walking down the street. A man is carrying groceries. A woman is pushing a stroller. 2 teenagers are arguing about something you can't hear. Nobody looks particularly successful. Nobody looks particularly wealthy. They're just living, and suddenly you wonder when you stop doing that. You close the laptop, not permanently, just for the afternoon. You walk home. It takes 23 minutes. You don't listen to a podcast. You don't check your phone. You just walk. And for the first time in a long time, you notice things that don't make you money. A dog sleeping underneath a parked car, someone watering plants outside an apartment, the smell of food coming from a restaurant, a kid riding a bicycle too quickly down the sidewalk. None of it improves your portfolio. None of it increases your income. None of it compounds. And somehow it feels valuable. That night, you open the notebook again. The $100,000 goal is still there. But underneath it, you write something else. What is enough? You don't have an answer. Not yet. So you keep building. 5 years after quitting your job, your financial situation looks completely different. Your investments have grown. Your business earns more. You have fewer expenses. You have more options. You're not a billionaire. You're not driving a supercar. Nobody is making videos about your success. But you can look at a random Tuesday morning and decide what happens next. That is worth more than you expected. You remember your old life, the alarm, the commute, the fluorescent lights, the lunch eaten at a desk, the promise you made to yourself every Friday. One day I'll have enough. You thought you were waiting for money. You weren't. You were waiting for permission. And quitting your job was the first time you realized nobody was going to give it to you. But there's something else you've learned. Freedom isn't the absence of work. It's the ability to choose what your work is for. You can work 16 hours on something you believe in and feel more alive than after 8 hours doing something you don't care about. You can make less money and feel richer. You can make more money and still feel trapped. The number doesn't decide that. You do. Years ago, you thought financial freedom meant reaching a number, $500,000, $1 million, maybe $2 million. You imagined that once the account reached it, something inside you would finally become quiet. It doesn't happen that way. The number keeps moving. There is always another milestone, another investment, another opportunity, another reason to wait. That's why the most important thing you built wasn't the portfolio. It was the ability to stop, to say no, to leave, to spend a Tuesday morning doing something that has nothing to do with becoming richer. You thought wealth would give you freedom. Eventually, you realize the relationship works in both directions. Freedom is what makes wealth useful. Without it, money is just another scoreboard. And maybe that's the strange part. You quit your job to chase wealth. You thought you were running toward money. But somewhere along the way, you discovered that the thing you wanted was sitting there the entire time. A Tuesday morning, a cup of coffee, no alarm, no manager, no meeting waiting for you, just time. Your time. And now you have a different question. Not how much money do you need? Not how quickly can you become wealthy? Not how early can you retire? The question is simpler. If you finally had all the money you thought you wanted, what would you actually do with the Tuesday?